Before I bring him up, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. Yes, back in June, the Colorado GOP put out a statement, an email. We weren't all that happy about it. We put out a statement. Colorado GOP wasn't all that happy about it, but you know what? We've talked, we've chatted. I'm talking personally here, Dave and I. We don't agree on everything, but we agree on the important things. We need Republicans to win in Colorado. We need conservative values to be brought back to the lives of the people in Colorado, not to mention nationally. And so we have bigger things ahead of us and bigger things we need to work together to do. So I'm very happy that Dave is willing to come and share with us what's happening with the state GOP, as well as allowing you guys to ask him any questions. So I will turn the meeting over to Dave. And if you'll just put this in pocket there.
Great, so you can get the audio. Well, let me ask, who's the last state chair to come speak to you guys?
It would have to be.
It's been that long?
Here before I was.
Oh boy, does anyone remember?
KBB never came and spoke?
And I wasn't involved before
Right.
that, so.
Well, did Ken Buck show up, or Jeff Hayes?
One of our house parties.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, that's something. Well, look, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I was given the opportunity to come speak and talk to you guys about what's going on in the party, take any questions that you have for me. And I just want to let everyone know that my interest is trying to bring as many people together so that we can defeat Democrats. I think he's right. We're not going to win unless we figure out how we can work together on all the issues that are important that will help us, win in 2024 against the Democrats, our real enemies. They're wrecking our state. They're doing things that are way beyond what anyone would have ever expected. And I think it's come high time that we band together and do what we can to make sure that they don't continue ruining our state and turning it into a place like San Francisco, or turning it into a place like Portland, or New York now, where things are just getting way out of hand. I got elected to the state legislature back in 2016, and my first experience going to the Capitol was very heartbreaking, and it got worse. I left the legislature in technically 2023, when the new guy got sworn in. But I can tell you there was a very noticeable progression, and not in a good way, of how things really deteriorated. I remember we had state patrol having to go around to the Capitol grounds picking up syringes before school children would come and do the tour of the Capitol. And that wasn't always the case. When I was first there, yeah, you had your homeless issue, and you saw many people just, taking up residence on the sidewalk or disrupting businesses. But it got way worse. The last couple of nights that I was there, for the last session I was involved in, it was a huge tent city, right across from the Capitol where there was general parking for the public, and there were illegal things going on in there, and no one was doing anything about it. And I think if we don't do something fast, if we don't try to restore balance back to Colorado, then you're going to see that not just confined to Denver or the Denver metro area. It's going to hit areas that people, don't think it would ever happen to them, but it's going to hit those areas. I'm seeing it in Colorado Springs. I know they're starting to see it in Douglas County. It's certainly happening in Pueblo. It is happening up and down the Front Range, and this is because of the Democrat leadership that we have right now. But we need to be honest about where the Republican Party is responsible for this. I've been taking a lot of heat. I've been taking a lot of criticism about some of the changes that we're making, but they're necessary changes because I think all of you and everyone else that should be served by our party has gotten a raw deal. We've had people who do not care about winning elections. They care more about making money for themselves. These are failed strategists, these are failed consultants who, as long as they get paid, they really don't concern themselves with who wins. They're really good at hoodwinking clients and donors into giving them money and then not really delivering results. And if you don't believe me, look at all the election cycles we've lost. If we're going to win, we got to do things differently. We just have to. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. There are a lot of folks, and I'll name an elephant in the room that I really don't like, and I don't really want to disparage anyone, but it demands a response. People like Dick Wadhams. I don't know about you, but Dick, he doesn't care about Republicans winning. There are a whole host of people that run alongside Dick, who work with Dick, who also don't care about winning. Instead, they want to tear people down so that they can build themselves up and get people to give them money. Did you guys know that Dick Wadhams actually supported repealing the Gallagher Amendment? For those of you who don't know about the Gallagher Amendment, that's a big reason why we're seeing property tax increases, because of the repeal. He was paid by unaffiliated, left-wing unaffiliated folks and Democrats to help aid in the effort of repealing the Gallagher Amendment. I'll give you another data point. Dick Wadhams, he was paid to help put in so-called affordable housing in red districts, specifically Douglas County, if I remember correctly. The reason that's a problem is because it changes the makeup of that community. It allows people, i.e. Democrat-leaning voters, to come into a red district and change how that population is going to be represented. And if you don't think that's a problem, look at the state capitol. For the first time, I think ever, Douglas County lost a red district. It was House District 43 to a Democrat. That was a red district, and they lost it. Now, part of that's demographic shift, and that's what I'm talking about. But another part of it is we've had people asleep at the switch. We've had people who do not actually care about winning elections so long as they line their own pockets. They've sold us a bill of goods that if we're going to win, we have to become more like Democrats. And I'll tell you right now that that's not what voters are looking for. There are a lot of voters who will agree with us, who will vote for us, if we're real, if we're authentic. We don't have to actually have 100% conformity with the people we're trying to persuade. The best example I can give you is when I was in the state legislature. I ran a bill that basically said you can't force vaccines on children or individuals. And I remember getting a lot of support from not only Republicans, but also unaffiliateds and even Democrats. There was one gal in particular, I'll never forget. She came from Boulder. And she came down and she testified in support of my bill, and she looked at the majority of Democrats who were on the committee, and she chided them. She gave them the business, and she said, "How dare you make me," and I'm trying to remember exactly what she said, but she basically identified who she was. "How dare you make someone like me, a liberal Democrat from Boulder, lesbian, come here and support a right-wing Christian conservative from Colorado Springs?" That's what she said. It was a priceless moment. She actually ended up donating to my campaign and actually helping me in my re-election bid at the time. My point telling you this is if I can win over a hardcore Democrat from Boulder, there's no reason why any of us couldn't win over an unaffiliated voter. And that leads me to the next point. Dick Wadhams and a lot of these other guys will tell you that the unaffiliated voter is a left of center voter. That's completely wrong. They're neither right nor left. If they were, they would probably affiliate. Truth is, they don't think about politics like we do. They don't think about the Laffer curve. They don't think about tax policy. They don't think about what goes on in Washington or in Denver. What they think about is once election time rolls around, which candidates can they support based on who's most trustworthy, who's talking about the issues they care about, and who's authentic. That's really what they care about. We don't need to become like Democrats in order to win, and we don't need to assume that the voters we're trying to reach are somehow left of center. Instead, what we should be talking about is the issues they care about. A lot of unaffiliated voters, they care about the issue of health care. You don't believe me? Look at Jared Polis. The guy literally created a taxpayer-funded marketing office called Saving People Money on Healthcare. He didn't do that because he's whimsical or anything like that. He did that because he has polling showing that 70% of voters, regardless of your political affiliation, care about the issue of healthcare. His solutions are wrong, but nonetheless, he's the only one talking about it. Republicans did not talk about healthcare. You guys remember the commitment to Colorado, right? Well, newsflash, we lost. That was a big push by the party and by all the elected officials. That messaging lost. And it wasn't just because of abortion, by the way. I want to say that flat out. It wasn't just because of abortion. Abortion was something that galvanized Democrats, but that's not why we lost. We lost for a lot of other reasons. And that issue with respect to Dobbs only really emboldened Democrats and got them out in a more aggressive way than Republicans. But I assure you, the commitment to Colorado didn't do anything for anyone. It was a cookie-cutter approach that did not resonate with the voters we needed to resonate with. And that makes sense. How can you have a cookie-cutter approach work when you're trying to compete in different geographical locations? The issues in Weld County do not necessarily mirror the issues that are in La Plata. The issues in El Paso do not necessarily mirror the issues that are in Pueblo. Right? These are different communities with different concerns, and we have to be able to tailor our message to the people that we're trying to reach. So what I propose, which is different from what consultants of the past would have you do, is I propose we actually ask the voters what they want to talk about. We kind of already know what they care about. Healthcare, it's a big one. You don't believe me? Look at the Democrats, because all they ever want to do is interfere and inject government into healthcare, but that's because they have polling to it. But the other things they care about are not just healthcare, but they care about education. Education is a big issue that we should be talking about. There's no reason why we can't be the party of not only students and children and teachers and parents, but we can also champion things that go along with the issue of education as well. I think everyone can agree here that we have a crazy woke agenda that's being pushed by Democrats. And it's not just crazy to Republicans, it's crazy to Democrats. They don't want to talk about what's going on in the school system. I submit to you we should be talking about that. Anything Democrats don't want to talk about, we should probably consider talking about. But we're really not going to get to the heart of that until we start asking voters what they care about. We have to be about the people. And that's a big reason why we lose, because we're not about the people. I'm sorry, the Republican Party for the past 20 years has not been about serving people. We've had leaders who wanted to serve themselves. And if we're going to change, we've got to start convincing people that we're going to work for them, and we're not going to line the pockets of our special interest buddies. We're not going to help out our corporate partners so that they can pad their paychecks or their profits. We're going to be about people. We're going to be about principle. And that's how we're going to start to turn these things around. I want to be very straight with you. We're not going to win majorities in Colorado in 2 years. Probably not going to win majorities in 4 years. Probably not even 6 years. But I promise you, if we start doing things differently, if we're going to be about people over profits, if we're going to be about principles over the special interest that we see that control our state, then we will turn things around. We will make gains. First and foremost, we got to be about others. Service to others, not service to ourselves. And if the party can start communicating that and start rowing in that direction, we'll win. But I promise you, anyone right now that is telling you that we need to keep doing what we've been doing in the past, they're either ignorant or they have an agenda, because the status quo is not working. If you don't believe me, look at the past 3 election cycles. We won't even go 20 years back. We'll go 3 election cycles. We've been getting our backsides handed to us and it's been getting worse, worse, and worse. By definition, we must change. I'm also going to admit to you, I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that I know everything. I don't. But what I do know is that if we work together, we're not only going to be better off, but I know that we're going to be able to find the answers because we're all smarter together than we are apart. So what I'm asking of this group, what I'm asking of any other group is help me, because I don't have all those answers. But I do know that if we work together, we can turn this around. It's going to take a while, but we're going to succeed. And we can't lose this moment. We really can't. We have finally done something that hasn't been done in a long time. We've elected new leadership. And I don't say that about myself, I say that about the collective Republican Party. There is new blood in our party that is yearning for change. We have to capitalize on that, and we have to start realizing that what was done in the past isn't serving us. And while we can maybe take some solid foundational principles from those who came before us, we have to innovate, we have to adapt. Otherwise, we're going to die. So I really don't have any other talking points or speech points to give you. I'd rather spend this time just taking any questions that any of you have. So, yeah, sir.
Well, first I want to say I agree with you about Dick Walker. I kind of have a two-point question. Number one, for this next legislative session coming up, are you going to have some war room that will get information out to the voters of what kind of bullshit they're pushing through the legislature? Because last time I don't feel like they did. Unless you were glued to your Twitter feed, you had no idea what was going on. And the second part of that is hopefully you were going to say yes, because if you do, how are you going to get that message out? Because I feel like we have a big disparity in funding between us and our enemies.
We do. The answer is yes. There's actually a number of legislators that we're trying to work with right now to see how we can disseminate information. We're also trying to work with caucus leadership on how we can better communicate what's going on. So just step back a little bit. There's been, in the past, there's been sort of the silo effect where all these different organizations, whether it be the House or Senate, they would kind of do their own thing and the party would kind of do its own thing. And the one thing I'll give credit to Christie on about the commitment to Colorado is she was able to get people to kind of sing off the same sheet of music, which is good, but it wasn't enough and it wasn't the right sheet of music. With that said, though, traditionally we've had Republican groups that kind of want to work on their own. My goal is to try and bring us together in some way so that we can coordinate messages and utilize the lists that we have. I have a membership list, but it's not going to be the same as the membership list of the caucuses or some other right-leaning affiliated group. So we're going to have to pull our resources together. We're also going to have to buy it. Right? There's earned media, but I think all of you would agree that they're not our friends, and they're never gonna, they're most of the time they're not gonna report fairly. So we can do what we can on earned media, but it's really going to be on us to buy the media, and so that means expanding our lists, prospecting to potential people that we think are more aligned with us than not. And building coalitions with other like-minded groups. This is why it's a big reason why I reached out to the Libertarian Party. I said, look, we got to do something different here. I can't have a spoiler candidate in Congressional District 8 when that whole election was decided by less than a percentage point. I guarantee you that Libertarian swung it for the Democrats. We can't have that anymore. So that's another way that we're going to be able to expand upon and be a force multiplier for how we communicate with folks. But it will be through email, text messages, phone calling, hard mail if we can afford it, depending upon the time. So it's an issue that we're working on, and we want to have a rapid response team that informs people in real time, hey, these are what the Democrats are doing for you. And we'll look for ways to actually sue Democrats in real time. They passed a number of bills that violated the Second Amendment. We should always be ready to litigate and force the media to cover in situations like that. So it's a work in progress, but yes, we're doing what we can on it. Yes, sir.
just something that I think might help you out. If you find somebody who's good at making memes, a lot of the younger guys are actually going to enjoy that. That'll actually reach the base a lot better with humor because then they'll dig deeper. So that's something that we could actually look into and reach out to.
Sure. We actually have we're taking applications for interns, and there's a big desire. So I'm on the older end of the millennial generation, and so I love memes, but I'm not good at actually creating them. But there are others who are younger that are. So we're actually exploring how to modernize our social media feeds so that we can reach younger generations. So it's a topic that's come up, and we're working on it. Yes, ma'am.
So, Judicial Watch sent out an email and talked about suing Jenna Griswold and gave figures in there, 340,000 emails that she's being forced to clean up, and something about they're going to come back again, sue her again if she doesn't clean the rest of them up.
Right.
In the email. I heard a rumor that you've been in contact with Judicial Watch and that you might be able to speak to that.
Well, we were actually gonna join them in their lawsuit
Okay.
until Jenna folded and settled with them.
Okay.
So there was no need to join in with it. But a part of the terms of that agreement is that she has to not only clean up those voter rolls, but disclose that to Judicial Watch. And if there's any sort of funny business, they're going to come back and seek further legal action. What I plan on doing is trying to get whatever information Judicial Watch has, we can see it too. But I think that was a huge win,
It's huge.
and it's needed. I know election integrity can be sort of a tricky topic to talk about, but I assure you, in Colorado, we do have a problem with voter rolls, or had. Hopefully they're getting better.
When did this happen? Do you know when the cleanup happened?
Well, the ruling took place like the late end of spring.
Yeah, April or something?
Yeah.
Like that?
So I don't know where they're at in their process
Okay.
of that, but if they're abiding by the terms of the settlement, they're accomplishing
And
it.
you'll be aware of that once it all happens?
I'm going to try and be aware of it.
Okay.
I can't always know in real time, but
Because
we'll.
I've been trying to tell people everywhere I go about it. It's really uplifting to hear that she was forced to clean up, because I think a lot of people have kind of thrown the towel in about balloting and any kind of integrity.
Right.
So it's really because 340,000 ballots is a massive amount of ballots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enough to keep control of the state forever, I would think.
Well, when you factor in the Democrats' ability to ballot harvest better than Republicans, you're right.
Yeah.
That matters, especially in those key competitive districts where we lose by the slimmest of margins. And there are about a handful of legislative seats that I can think of where 500 votes, yeah, you can ballot harvest easy in that scenario and come out on top. And Democrats, they're way better at that because they're better funded and they've had more experience in doing that type of stuff. And the other thing that Republicans, I think maybe are not as aware of is the fact that the ballot harvesting is much easier for them because they do it in concentrated urban areas. When we try to ballot harvest, we're dealing with people that are not as concentrated. They live in single family homes, or they're, if you're in the rural area, forget it. Sometimes it's not even worth doing it. So we got to figure out how to do a better job of ballot harvesting, but recognize that the voters that they ballot harvest from are not the same as the voters that we need to ballot
But
harvest
wouldn't it
from.
be worth it to try to ballot? Because I sometimes think if somebody has 30 ballots going to their house, they don't really care who they give them to, and then maybe we need to figure out what would make these people happy. I mean, I could go mow their lawn if they want to shovel their driveway or whatever it is.
Well, if they got 30 ballots going to one house,
Give them money.
right. I mean, if we know of a single house that has like 30 ballots going to it, I'll probably lodge a complaint before I try to earn their 30 votes.
Well, and there won't probably be as many of them.
Right.
Cleanup happens.
Right. That's the other part of it too. But yeah, we're on that. We want to get that information, and then separately we're working at ballot harvesting / ballot chasing for our side. So, yes, sir.
Well, my name's Pizza Pete Kraus, and I'm running for the 3rd Ward in Broomfield for City Council, which in Broomfield, City Council got swept blue 4 years ago. Broomfield's always been a reliably red city. And there's a campaign YouTube you all should watch. And it's by one of our candidates. His name's Adam Gobetti. And you should go to Adam Gobetti's YouTube station. It's Gopetti. And you should watch the song he did to 16 Tons about the Broomfield City Council and how I owe my soul to the City Council. And you hear the whole song. It's extremely well done. It's extremely clever, and it freaking nails the points. Okay? And it's super important at the City Council level that we start to, like, we've got to take back Broomfield City Council first. So the humor thing, the meme thing that he was talking about is the reason I brought that up, because when you see that kind of cleverness and you see that kind of creativity and humor behind it, actually, that's the kind of stuff that when we start to do that and when we start to capture people's imaginations and begin to inspire them, that's when we begin to win elections.
Sure. I don't think I don't think we're going to survive if we have a bunch of candidates or leadership that's stiff, right? I mean, if you're not personable or approachable or funny, then you're not going to fare as well as you could. So I think that's a good point. And we're trying not to take ourselves as seriously as others have in the past, for sure. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you take the chair, you implemented some changes that people are not happy with. Can you give a couple examples of those and why the changes were needed?
Sure. Well, right off the bat, we cut expenses as quickly as we could. We were hemorrhaging money, and we couldn't even really account for where the money was going. My treasurer, who I appointed, he actually supported my primary competitor, Eric Adlin. He ran for chair, I ran for chair, I came out on top. And he was going to appoint a treasurer that I knew, and he had a good reputation. So I brought him on, and once we started digging into everything, we understood very quickly that the party was leaking. It was a leaky sieve, right? There were a lot of things that were going on that we really didn't have a handle over. So we immediately started cutting stuff. We immediately started instituting policies where we were not going to just continue funding consultants or strategists or even credentialize them. That's the other thing. For those of you who don't know this, the state party has the ability to recommend to campaigns or candidates or issue groups, who to work with and who not to work with. We stopped all of that because we were like, you know what, we don't trust anything that's going on here, and for good reason. We got destroyed in 2022, so we really have to question and reassess everything. And so we immediately did that. The other thing that we did is that we decided to follow through on the vote that we had for the open primary lawsuit. 2 years ago in, I think it was September of 2021, it was near unanimous. It might not have been unanimous, but near unanimous. One of the few things that brought all the factions of the party together was that we don't want an open primary. We want a closed primary system, and so they voted to have a lawsuit. Christie and the prior administration dragged their feet on that and kept it sort of not as a priority for 2 years. I come in right away, and we go ahead and we immediately start that process, and we finally filed suit end of July, and that was 2 years in the making. So that was a big thing that my critics are criticizing me over. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so follow up. So how are the party finances now, and what can you do as a state party chairman to help other people who might not be politically connected to get more involved and run for office?
Sure. Well, the state party finances could be a heck of a lot better. We're not broke, but we're not swimming in cash either. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to now pivot into a better fundraising operation that we have. that we haven't seen in a long time. We're essentially building from scratch. We're treating it like a startup corporation in a lot of ways. You have to understand, there was really no small dollar donor program in place. There was no really high dollar donor program in place. Kind of makes me wonder how they even survived as long as they have. I mean, I came in and I didn't even really know where the lights were. All the staff pretty much said adios. There was one person that stayed a little bit and then transitioned out very quickly. But you know, we came into it very cold, not knowing a lot of things that we needed to know about. And then as we were trying to transition and ask the prior administration, hey, what's going on, we would sometimes get some helpful information, but a lot of times we wouldn't get a lot of good information. My treasurer didn't get access to the bank accounts until about May. I was elected in March, and we didn't get what we needed financially until about May. That's how problematic it was. And that hurt our fundraising efforts because I didn't want to ask donors to put money into something I had no control over. I mean, we had automatic payments going out that I couldn't easily track. We had, to give you an example, we had a former employee. They prepaid health benefits and didn't tell us about that. And so once we found that out, we clawed it back. But we were really upset that money was being spent without the new administration's authorization, for example. We've since taken care of that. We've gotten past a lot of the triage issues that we had to deal with, and now we're in this different phase where we're meeting with donors, we're presenting them a plan on how we're going to be competitive. We've identified about 10 legislative seats that we're going to be focused on for 2024. And the party's main mission will be those legislative seats, plus winning Congressional District 8 and protecting Congressional District 3 with Lauren Boebert. So that's what our primary focus on. In terms of encouraging people to get involved, I'm certainly trying to reach beyond my network, certainly coming to groups like this and encouraging people to get involved. I'm actively looking for candidates to run. That's probably the hardest job, is finding someone who's willing to put themselves into the field, because it's not a simple proposition. You know it's in a lot of ways it's a sacrifice that you wouldn't even think of just running, because you open yourself up to attack from the media, from the Democrats, from even Republicans who want to potentially jump in at a later time and win the primary. So I'm making phone calls to business leaders, other influential people within communities around the state, and coming to places like this saying, hey, if you want to run for office, let me know. If you want to get involved in the campaign, let me know, because there's a lot of work to be done, but not enough workers. We've put together a number of committees to try and expand that reach statewide. So those are some of the things that we're doing right now to accomplish, what you're asking about. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ashley Ryan Watzel. I'm a brand new Republican. I brought my fiance. I just converted him as well. We became Republicans.
Thank you.
We became Republicans after lobbying for ourselves and our community, volunteering at the state capitol this season against Senate President Steve Fenberg's Senate Bill 290. I was one of the activists who led the opposition. We had 120 people come testify against his legislation because it commercializes natural medicine. With our number 2 presidential contender by Beck coming out and promoting natural medicines for veterans to heal PTSD,
Sure.
Helping with our mental health crisis. There's so many effective methods that we can use to help people heal and address our mental health crisis in America. What is the state party's stance on natural medicine, and are we using that as a leverage to bring in new Republicans who may not be aware?
Well, I don't think the state party's actually contemplated what our position is. I can tell you from my past legislative experience, I got to know a lot of wonderful people in the health freedom, health autonomy sphere. A lot of folks that wanted to not have to, be bogged down by, big pharma and what they're offering, and look at a more naturalistic, holistic treatment. So yeah, I mean, we've never been asked, but I guess as a hot take, I'm winging it right now. I think ultimately that adults who are suffering from any sort of debilitating condition, especially those who served our military, they should have the right to try whatever they need in order to get better.
Yeah, and I'm going to say you agree with all of the Republicans I spoke to in the House and Senate. Representative Ron Weinberg was our hero. He listened to the House hearing on 290. He gave the most moving speech for personal use and community healing. And so that would just be what I would advocate for. There's a ton of Coloradans. Natural medicine pulls really well among your younger under 45 demographic. And with us recently decriminalizing, and then the state Democrats coming in and recriminalizing behaviors that were decriminalized by voters, I think there's definitely a way to leverage that towards more Republicans, young Republicans.
Sure. I don't disagree. Ultimately, people should have the right to try things if it's going to make them better and nothing else is working. And I think I'm definitely going to get in trouble with Big Pharma, but I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. They care more about profits than they do people. Don't believe me? Look at the history of pharmaceutical companies. So they have a built-in incentive to work with government to stop alternative treatments. And so when I was in the legislature, I was always trying to push for more freedom for the individual with respect to those types of issues. So, I mean, I'm the head of the party, so I guess that's where
it's your call now.
that's where we're at now.
Democrats trace the report. There's lots of that big pharma money coming in. I think that's a huge influence
Right.
on the legislation that President Steve Benberg pushed
For sure.
through. It pushed through.
We will definitely. I know a lot of people who are in the same boat that you are, advocating for a lot of good things. I can reach out to them and we can see what we can put together. But it's in line with what my story I told you. Again, I won over a liberal Democrat Boulderite because of the health autonomy issue. So makes sense to me. Yes, ma'am.
So how you were talking about how there's 10 districts that we're focusing on. District 16 was one of those districts that there was only 600 difference vote, and Donaldson conceded before the count was over. Do we have a strategy to take District 16 back specifically?
Yeah, it's a district near and dear to my heart because I live in Colorado Springs. So we got to get a good candidate. I mean, they don't have to be perfect or anything, but we got to get a competent candidate. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just be merciless
Yes.
against Stephanie Vigil. For those of you who don't know Stephanie Vigil, she's an adult but never grew up.
Yep.
She's like a child who just is whatever age she is, in her 30s. But she thinks that every one of you owe her something. Anyone that works for a living, they need to pay for her to exist. And for whatever reason, she got more votes to be in the legislature, and she's pushing her crazy policies on us. I mean, she thinks there's a right to confiscate housing for her benefit. She thinks there's a right on the part of people to pay for everything, right? I mean, don't worry about working, just the government give me all the money in the world, right? That's who we're talking about.
She thinks we're trying to kill her.
Yeah.
Erase her.
Yeah, I mean, she said some of the most ridiculous things on social media, and I assure you it would give me nothing but pleasure just to kick her out of office and help her be retired. Because she doesn't even want to work with Republicans. If I remember correctly, when I was paying attention, she said that she just doesn't want to work. She doesn't want to be, quote, bipartisan, which I was happy for the honesty. But she doesn't want to deal with anyone that disagrees with her. And so my solution is let's help retire her and get her out of the legislature.
Well, this is the thing too. She doesn't even want to work with people who agree with her because she has a hero complex. If you look at her social media, look at me, I'm a hero. Look at what I did. Look at me. How am I benefiting?
Yeah.
From it? So I want her to have it.
I promise you, we're gonna put every amount of resource that we can into that district to defeat her.
And then this is the next question, because the head of the Libertarians in Colorado Springs is also in her district. Do you think he's going to sit it out and bring forth any candidate, or are we going to have to agree with every single one?
If we have a candidate that mostly aligns with the Libertarian Party, they have assured me they will stop spoiler candidates from going into that. Well, so for those of you who may not know what's going on in the Libertarian Party, they've kind of had their own civil war. There's a group called the Mises Caucus that has taken over the Libertarian Party, and they have departed from the classical libertarians, and so there's more of them than there are the libertarians of the past. And so what they've told me is that they're gonna, if we align with them on key issues, and they sent us a sort of a questionnaire where we give our candidates, and it shouldn't be objectionable. Like, it's really good stuff. They really went out of their way to try and find consensus with Republicans so that we could be aligned and defeat Democrats. But with that said, what they're going to do is that at their nominating assemblies, they're going to essentially say, okay, we don't want to run anyone because we agree with the Republican candidate on this one. And if someone decides to run, then they're going to let them run, because they're allowed to run at that assembly, but they're also going to have an option called none of the above. And there are more of them who have committed to saying we will vote none of the above if we hold our end of the bargain and put forward a candidate that aligns with them more so than not. So I am trusting that they are telling me the truth, but we should be able to do that.
I've read the list and it's all good. The only thing I'm worried about is the trying to eliminate income taxes, because that's going to be impossible for us. That's like when I was reading, I'm like, good. That ain't going to happen. Good.
It may not happen, but Jared Polis agrees we should get rid of income taxes. So it'd be interesting to.
He said it.
I know. It's a bunch of hogwash, because he knows Democrats are never going to put that on his desk. So it's easy for him to say that. But nevertheless, I think the list that they put out is more than fair for our party. And if there's a serious, and I'm going to tell whoever the candidates are for our side running in that district, if they're serious about winning, they need to align with the Libertarians on this one so that we can defeat Stephanie Vigil. I guarantee you that whoever we put up is going to be a million times better than Stephanie Vigil. And if you guys want to be entertained, just go look at her Twitter feed.
She quit.
Yeah.
Oh, she quit Twitter?
Yes, she did.
Well, there you go.
Because of me and her little meltdown about Ocean Gate.
Well, get on YouTube and watch her speak during the session. It's one of the most priceless things you could watch.
Your district up in arms? Like, if she's as toxic as I hear you saying, and I completely understand and agree, your district, I would think, would be appalled and up in arms about it. Is your district not up in arms about
So
it?
we are right on the border of District 17 and 16. We are in District 17, which is Regina English. Vigil is in District 16, because if I was in District 16, I would be running against her like yesterday.
She's vulnerable.
Yes.
I'm confident she'll lose. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I used to help run the Libertarian Party. So I was in the boardroom when we tried to negotiate with Republicans. So I don't know if I trust them, but I'm glad that you got there. I would suggest to you that you offer them something, like maybe U.S. House District 1 against Diana DeGette. I always thought that if you found a really good libertarian who spoke well and was a viable candidate, and you ran them against Diana DeGette, that you might actually be able to somehow break what's going on. And if you gave them something, because I guarantee you whoever made this deal with you is getting so much shit right now from the other libertarians, because that's how it works.
A little bit.
So, and I know Roger Rowland probably wouldn't be real happy about it, but they do run a placeholder, and so that might be a spot.
Well,
and then I think a lot of us could get behind
Just-
the libertarian running in the U.S.
Sure.
House District 1.
Just to give you some insight, they actually, when we were negotiating, they told us they weren't interested in higher office. They wanted to focus on nonpartisan races
Okay.
and lower offices, and it's in line with their new governing philosophy because they feel that, I think realistically that a libertarian's never going to win sort of those higher offices, so a nonpartisan race is more their speed. But the reason the libertarian deal came about was because of really just good timing and coincidence. When I was in the legislature, I was with an organization called Young Americans for Liberty, and they are more of a libertarian-leaning organization, and my voting record was such that they invited me into their organization. And the chair of the Libertarian Party, who took over as a part of the Mises Caucus, she was also with Young Americans for Liberty. And so we figured that out, and that opened up a dialogue, and we started talking about our common interests and our common goals. And I floated the idea. I was like, look, I have a real problem here with libertarian candidates potentially being spoilers. Is there anything we can do? And Hannah is her name. She said, well, Dave, you and I agree on a lot of things. So why don't we maybe make an agreement that if you can help get candidates that are more aligned with our values without violating, the Republican platform or the base, then I think we can make this work. And so she and I worked this all out, and she went back to her leadership team. Again, they took over the Libertarian Party. This deal could not work in any other state, but depending on the state. But it works here because I think of that shared common, interest that we have between each other, and the fact that the Mises Caucus that took over the Libertarian Party, they really want to do something different. They don't want to run candidates as a protest. They actually want more freedom in Colorado. And so Hannah said, she told me, look, I don't care about who gets credit. I care that we have more freedom in Colorado. And if the Republican Party can be used as a vehicle to give more freedom to individual people, then we will partner with you and support it. And that's never been done in the history of Colorado. I don't even think it's been done anywhere else in the country. What we've done is pretty historic. We just have to uphold our end of the bargain. So if we put forward more candidates that have a libertarian streak in them, we're going to be able to win, I think, competitive seats and not have the spoiler effect.
And the Mises Caucus has taken over the entire LP, like at the...
They took over not only Colorado, but they took over the national level. Now they didn't take over every state party. They're still going through that internal battle, but they control everything right now. Fascinating read. You guys should Google it and you'll see what I'm talking about. When we announced this deal, it actually kick-started a whole internal national debate amongst libertarians across the country. And a lot of them were like, yeah, this is great. And then a lot of others were like, you guys are sellouts and squishes. You're just doing the bidding of the Republican Party. And I'm like, I'm giving you more pro-freedom candidates. I mean, how are you guys not winning in this, right? So it looks like I'm getting the hook here. So,
They never win.
well, that's why they did the deal, because they know that. So I guess that's it. I'll stick around if anyone has any questions, but I want to thank, I just want to thank the group for allowing me to come and share with you some of my thoughts. Let me know if you need anything else from me. Thank you.